حي على الفلاح.
The fitna, or the dissension, all the problems that started that led to the death of Uthman radiallahu anhu, was started by a man by the name of Abdullah ibn Saba. And Abdullah ibn Saba was a Jew from Sana'a in Yemen, and he pretended that he was a Muslim. So he's a hypocrite coming into Islam, because Islam had become powerful at this point, and he felt that the only way to defeat Islam was from a fitna from the inside. He first started in Medina. He comes to Medina and he tries to put vague and strange questions in Medina. But of course all the scholars, the majority of scholars were in Medina, and the companions of the Prophet ﷺ were in Medina. So he wasn't able to do anything. There was not a single person who followed him. So then he tries Asham. He goes to Asham, and in Asham, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, who was the governor there for 20 years, and there was not a single fitna that arose in Asham. So then Abdullah ibn Saba was also unsuccessful there, and he heads to Al-Kufa, and he goes to Al-Kufa and he finds it to be ripe with fitna, lots of problems going on. Ibn Saba's group and the people of fitna, their numbers had grown. They had large numbers now, and they had grown in strength. And Uthman ibn Affan ordered that all the governors come to meet him in Medina after Hajj for consultations. This is the 34th year after the Hijrah. Abdullah ibn Amr suggested that although these people should be taken and they should be made to engage in activities of jihad. Then Sa'id ibn al-As radiallahu anhu suggested that the leaders of these troublemakers should be taken and punished, and that would scare away everyone else, all the followers. And then Muawiyah radiallahu anhu suggested that the governors of each province should make sure they just clear their province of their existence. But Uthman radiallahu anhu disagreed. He said that he could not punish people unless to the limits prescribed by the Quran. Ibn Saba's group and the people of fitna, so they agreed to meet in Medina in Shawwal in the 35th year after the Hijrah. They disguised themselves as Hujjaj, as if they're going for Hajj. So they were very organized. And the maximum narration says that there were 1,000 people. All of them wanted to remove Uthman, but they could not decide on who was going to be the Khalifa after Uthman radiallahu anhu. So they come and they camped outside of Medina. The Sahaba, they heard the news of this camp, that they're outside and they're going to attack Medina. So Ali radiallahu anhu and Talha and Zubair, they took arms and they said, if you enter Medina, we're going to meet you with our weapons. You can't enter. So the people of Fitna lost hope. They said that it's over and we're going to return. So when they return, people of Medina said, okay, they're gone. We can put our weapons away. And they put their weapons away, and they consider this camp, this army now has left. They're going on their way back. Suddenly at night, people of Fitna come and they fill the streets of Medina and they're yelling and they have their swords out and they're saying, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, making takbir, and they just controlled the city. They said, we don't want this man, so let him leave the Khilafah or abdicate. So the Sahaba were not able to oppose them now. They are in control of the city. And then Uthman leaves his home. So now they're in control of the city, but they still allow Uthman radiallahu anhu to leave his home and go for Salah. So he goes and he leads the Salah. And the people of Fitna are there and he leads them in Salah. And then after the Salah, he gathers the Sahaba and he tells them, do you want me to resign? If you suggest that I should resign, I will do it immediately. Ali and Talha and Zubair and Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas and Abdullah ibn Abbas, all of them say, don't do it. These people, they're not worth it. And Abdullah ibn Abbas says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, do not remove a shirt, a garment that Allah has clothed you with. So then Uthman says, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So he decides to remain in his position. So when Uthman saw the people of Medina not able to do anything, what did he do? He wrote messages in secret and sent them. While the people of Fitna were waiting for his decision, he sent messages to each major city. The first to send an army was Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Immediately sent a quick army, put it together, and then Abdullah ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Sarh in Egypt sends an army under Muawiyah ibn Khudayj as-Sukuni. And in Kufa, Al-Qa'qa' ibn Amr, a man equal to 1,000 warriors, he gathers some warriors and he led them himself, and he advances ahead. And they're encouraging people to join the armies, to go save the Khalifa, that now the city, the holy city of the Prophet ﷺ is besieged. Armies start to pour from all around the Muslim Ummah, heading out to save the Khalifa of the Muslims. So while these armies were being gathered, events were unfurling in Medina. This is the first Friday since they came and entered Medina. Uthman enters the masjid to give the khutbah. Oh, you enemies or people who transgressed against us. By Allah, the people of Medina know that you are cursed upon the tongue of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So erase your mistakes with that which is correct, for verily Allah does not erase the bad deeds except with good. So then Muhammad ibn Maslama got up and said, and I bear witness to that. And then Zayd ibn Thabit gets up and he says that he is ready to swear upon that. So then the people of Fitna felt that they're going to lose control. So Hukaym ibn Jabal, the thief, got up to Muhammad ibn Maslama with the sword and forced him to sit down. So tempers flared. Everyone gets up in the masjid. And the people of Fitna got up with their swords. And the Sahaba are not allowed to carry swords. So they start to throw stones at them. And the people of Fitna are hitting them. And they start to throw stones back at them. And one of the stones that were being thrown around struck Uthman radiallahu anhu. And he's an old man, he's 83 years old. And he fell unconscious and he was carried to his home. So Ali and Talha and Zubair entered upon Uthman radiallahu anhu. They wanted to visit him while he was sick and to consult with him also. So Uthman commands him to do nothing. Just wait for the armies that are approaching. So he gathered all the people in the masjid and he gave them his last khutbah before he was murdered. And he says some beautiful words. Verily, Allah has given you the dunya, so you may seek with it the hereafter, the akhirah. And He did not give it to you so you could be attached to it. Verily, the dunya fades away and the akhirah remains. So do not be fooled by that which fades away, and don't let it divert you from that which remains. Fear Allah, for taqwa of Him is a protection from His punishment. And stick with the jama'ah and don't become split into groups and factions. And mention the blessing of Allah upon you as you were enemies. So He united your hearts and you became through His blessing brothers. So then He tells them, so go out, may Allah have mercy on you, and leave my doors. He's telling them no protection. No one to protect me and no one to lift the sword. And He calls Talha and Zubair and Ali, and they come and He tells everyone to sit down. So they all sit down. And then He says, O people of Medina. This is still in the masjid. He has everyone sit down. He says, O people of Medina, I bid you farewell. And I ask Him, meaning Allah, to give you a good Khalifa after me. And by Allah, I will not let anyone enter upon me after this day until Allah decrees His judgment on me. And I will leave those, meaning the people of Fitna, I will not give them anything from what they have asked. Not the deen, not the dunya. They're not going to get anything from me until Allah does what He wants with this affair. And He insists on the people of Medina to go back home, and He swore by Allah that they will. And this of course explains why the Sahaba did not defend him until his death. So everyone goes home. But the Sahaba didn't want to leave him unprotected. So Ali radiallahu anhu sent Al-Hasan and Al-Husayn. And then Zubair ibn al-Awwam sent his son, the warrior, Abdullah ibn Zubair. And Talha ibn Ubaidullah sent his son, Muhammad. And others of the Sahaba sent. So now we have a number of the young Sahaba are in the courtyard of Uthman radiallahu anhu with weapons, and the people of Fitna are outside of the house, and Uthman radiallahu anhu is inside the house. So now news reaches the people of Fitna of the armies that are coming to save Medina. So they have a meeting. They say if they reach us, we're dead. The only solution is to kill Uthman. 18 days of them controlling Medina. And the armies are on their way. And they encircled the house of Uthman radiallahu anhu. And they said the best thing is to let him die alone. And what's the only way we can do that? To prevent him from drinking water. So they heard news that the army of Ash-Sham, 3 days away from Medina. So they were very afraid now. They're consulting with each other. What are we going to do? So they said, who will go in to Uthman and either get him to resign or kill him? So one of them agreed to do it. So they tried to enter by force. So now a fight starts between the people of Fitna and the youth of the Sahaba. So then news reaches Uthman that there is killing going on in his courtyard. So he calls Abdullah ibn Zubair. He says, who ordered you to do that? So he says, I have ordered that the weapons are to be put down, and I do not make halal a drop of blood in my cause. So he tells them, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, they will enter upon you. And he tells them, so be it. So they all left, Al-Hassan, Al-Hussein, Muhammad ibn Talha, except Abdullah ibn Zubair. He refused to go. He insisted. What they did, they set the external gate of the house on fire. And now they can enter from any side of the house. So Abdullah ibn Zubair then decided to stand in front of the house, in front of the door to the house. And at night, one of them, the people of Fitna, comes from the side and enters upon Uthman. And he yells, leave it and we'll leave you. Meaning, leave the Khilafah, we'll leave you alone. So then Uthman tells him, woe to you. Wallahi, I have never uncovered a woman in Jahiliyyah nor in Islam. So he's telling him, how could you enter my house from a window and there are women in the house and they could be uncovered? So he's reminding him to have haya. And I will not remove a garment that Allah has clothed me with, and I am upon my state until Allah honors the people of happiness and disgraces the people of wretchedness. So the man was taken aback by this, and he felt ashamed and he left. So they tried something else. They took stones and they started to throw. So he came to them from the window and he said, woe to you, don't you know that there are others besides me in the house? So one of them said, we were not the ones who threw them at you. So he asked them, who was it then? They said, Allah threw them at you. He said, you have lied. If Allah threw them at me, He wouldn't have missed. So they felt ashamed. So they left. What to do now? So they sent another man, telling him, rid us of him. And a man from Bani Layth. So he enters upon Uthman. Uthman tells him, where are you from? He tells him, Laythi. He tells him, you are not the one. So the man is surprised. He tells him, how is that? So then Uthman tells him, aren't you the ones that the Prophet ﷺ made dua for you on the day of such and such? So he said, yes. He said, so you won't be lost. The man returned and he left the people of Fitna, never joined them again. So they sent another man from Quraysh. And he enters, he says, oh Uthman, I'm going to kill you. And he tells him, no, you won't kill me. So the man tells him, how is that? He tells him, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ made istighfar for you, people of Quraysh, on that day. So you're not going to shed blood that's not halal. So the man made istighfar and he left the people of Fitna, never returning to them again. So then the last attempt, they sent Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. Uthman sees him with the people of Fitna. He tells him, woe to you, you are angry against Allah? Have I done anything against you? And you get upset? So Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr was shocked by this. And he retreats, he goes back. They saw that he was not successful. And they felt that this issue needs to end. So entering now upon Uthman are Qutayra al-Sukuni, and Saudan ibn Hamran al-Sukuni, and Al-Ghafiqi ibn Harb, and some others. When this group entered, they found him sitting and reciting the Quran. And it's a magnificent sight. And he's 83 years old, sitting in his home reciting the Quran. It was a wonderful sight to see. So even these people, when they entered, they stopped. They were at awe of this. So Al-Ghafiqi enters. And they stop. Tells them, what's wrong with you? They said, don't you see? Look at Khalifa, how he's sitting. How can you attack someone who looks like that? He tells them, woe to you. And he took a metal object and he struck Uthman radiallahu anhu in his head. And the blood dripped and it came on top of the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and Allah will suffice you against them. Na'ila bint al-Farafisa, his wife, was there. and she got up from her place to protect him. Saudan raised the sword and he's going to strike Uthman. She puts her hand to protect Uthman radiallahu anhu, and he cuts off her fingers. So he hits Uthman radiallahu anhu in his shoulder and he splits his shoulder. And then he strikes him with his dagger 9 times, saying 3 for Allah and 6 for what I have against you. Then Qutayra gets up and he stood over him and put the sword to his chest, and then he leans against it and enters the sword into his chest. And then one of them got up and began to jump on his chest. Some will tell you he kicked his chest. Others that he jumped on his chest until he crushed his ribs. Then the servants of Uthman, so they entered the room with their swords. One of them attacks Saudan and kills him immediately. So then the people of Fitna killed this servant. And then another servant enters and he kills Qutayra. So far, Saudan and Qutayra, both of them who struck Uthman, are killed. And then they kill this servant. And then a small battle ensues between the servants and the people of Fitna. But of course, they were outnumbered and they were killed, but they managed to kill a few of the people of Fitna. And in this way, Uthman radiallahu anhu is killed. Dhun Nurayn, the bearer of the 2 lights, the righteous Khalifa, one of the 10 given glad tidings of paradise, the husband of Ruqayya and Kulthum, the man who prepared the army of Usra, the one who gave the well of Roma in charity, the one who gathered the Mus'haf and distributed it. And the Imam of the Muslims is killed in such a heartless way. When Uthman radiallahu anhu was murdered, Na'ila bint Farafisa radiallahu anha, she sent to Abdurrahman ibn Udais from the people of Fitna. And he was kind of the closest in relations, blood relation to them. So she's asking for the dead bodies. SubhanAllah, when they killed the servants and they killed Uthman, they left the bodies there. And they left the bodies there for days with Na'ila sitting in the house with dead bodies in the house. She sends to this man saying, let's bury the dead. So he insulted her, rahimahullah. And at night, Marwan ibn al-Hakam, and with him some companions, Zayd ibn Thabit, and went to Ali. And they told him it's not right for Amir al-Mu'mineen not to be buried until now. And they went to Talha and al-Hasan and Ka'b ibn Malik, and they went to the people of Fitna and said, you killed him, now let us bury him. What else do you want after you killed the man? So the people of Fitna said, no one else goes out with you. They feared that if the public sees this, that they're going to revolt against it. So they said, only you go out and bury him. So they went out, and with them were some women and a few young people. And Marwan ibn al-Hakam led the salah because he was the closest relative. And they buried Uthman radiallahu anhu in what later on becomes a part of Baqiyah. The people of Fitna said no one else is going to be buried after this, even though there were still servants dead in the house. So then Na'ila complains to the people of Fitna. So they came and they pulled them from their feet and threw them in the streets, so the dogs came and ate them. And Uthman radiallahu anhu was buried at night, and very few people prayed over him, and his daughter was crying and his wife was crying. And this was in the 18th of Dhul Hijjah, in the 35th year after the Hijrah, and he was 83 years old radiallahu anhu. She wrote from Na'ila bint al-Farafisa to Amir Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, by this letter I call you to Allah, who showered His bounties on you and made you Muslims and showed you the light and liberated you from kufr. In the name of Allah I appeal you to rise in the cause of Uthman, who was butchered mercilessly. By way of your relationship with him, the responsibility to avenge his blood on you. It is the command of Allah that if there is bloodshed between 2 groups of Muslims, you should strive for peace amongst them. But if any group transgresses, take action against the rebels and kill them. Some people rebelled against Uthman without just cause. You know what high position Uthman commanded in Islam. He was very close and dear to the Prophet ﷺ, and he never coveted the Khilafah, meaning he never wanted the Khilafah. He was chosen as the Khalifa by the people, and during the 12 years of his office he worked day and night for the welfare of the people. During his Khilafah, extensive conquests were made. Immense wealth flowed into the public treasury, and the people became more prosperous. Instead of appreciating the benefits of his rule, the rioters besieged the house of Uthman. They did not allow any food or water to enter the house. We were denied the use of water from the well which Uthman had purchased with his own money. And she says, we threw ourselves on the body of Uthman, and they pulled us away and robbed us of our ornaments. I am sending you along with this letter the blood-stained clothes of the Khalifa. See to it that the blood does not go unavenged. May Allah have mercy on the soul of Uthman, and may the curse of Allah be upon his murderers. So the letter reaches Muawiyah radiallahu anhu in Sham, and he reads the letter and the blood begins to boil. And he hangs up this blood-stained garment of Uthman radiallahu anhu up on the minbar. And every day 70,000 warriors gather awaiting the command so they can avenge the blood of Uthman. So meanwhile, now back in Medina, the people of Fitna, they started to try to find the Khalifa after Uthman to pledge to. The people of Egypt wanted Ali radiallahu anhu to be the next Khalifa. The people of Al-Kufa wanted Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. The people of Basra wanted Talha ibn Ubaidullah. And the armies have arrived. Armies who came to support the Medinians and to support Uthman radiallahu anhu. They arrived, but they stopped outside of Medina. They sent letters back now waiting for orders. So the people of Fitna now, to understand their situation, they're afraid. They're afraid the army will enter and they will get killed. So now they're in a hurry to choose another Khalifa. The armies won't invade to fight the Khalifa. So by mixing up affairs like this, they can all escape safely. But they couldn't find anyone who was going to accept the bay'ah, the pledge. No one wants to become the Khalifa. So now they lost hope, the people of Fitna. This is 5 days after the death of Uthman. And they gathered and said that if the people of Medina don't agree upon someone, we fear that Muawiyah will become the new Khalifa. And he's from Bani Umayyah, and wallahi, if he wins it, he will not leave any of you alive. So the heads of the people of Fitna gathered, and they gathered the people of Medina, and they said, we give you 2 days. Wallahi, if you don't pledge to someone in 2 days, we will kill Ali and Talha and Zubair and many others. Some Sahaba then went to Ali and asked him to become the Khalifa. And he refused. He said, we're heading into very difficult times. They told him, we ask you by Allah, don't you see what we see? Fear Allah, they're going to kill us and they're going to kill you. And Ali radiallahu anh tells him, only because of this situation do I agree. And he stipulated to them that they obey him and they do as he says. So they agreed. And agreed to meet the next day in the masjid. So then they gathered, the people of Medina and the Sahaba gathered, and the people of Fitna liked this idea. But they knew that if Talha and Zubair don't pledge to Ali, then this is not going to work. So when Talha and Zubair heard the news, they said, no, we will pledge to him only if he begins with killing the murderers of Uthman. So now the news reaches the people of Fitna. They decided the only way was to force them to pledge. So the next day, Ali radiallahu anhu comes and he ascends the pulpit and he says, O people, this affair, meaning the Khilafah, is your affair and no one has a right upon it except the one you put in charge. So if you like, I will accept. Otherwise, I have nothing against anyone. So Zubair was brought over by a group of the people of Fitna. They went and brought him to the masjid. He brought him with the sword. They forced him to come. And Talha, they forced him at the point of the sword. So Zubair and Talha were forced to come. And when Ali spoke and the Sahaba accepted, Hukaym put the sword at the neck of Zubair. And Al-Ashtar put the sword at the neck of Talha and told him, get up and pledge. So then Talha comes, the first man to pledge. He comes, and of course he's forced to pledge. And his right hand, as you all know, had been paralyzed in the battle of Uhud from defending the Prophet ﷺ. So he lifts his paralyzed right hand with his left hand and he puts it in the hand of Ali. And a witness who saw this, he said, the first hand to pledge is a paralyzed hand. This is an affair that will not succeed. And then Zubair radiallahu anhu pledges, and there was sword at his neck as well. And then the other Sahaba start to pledge, and then the other people pledge. This takes place in the 25th of the Hijjah, 7 days after the death of Uthman radiallahu anhu. So now, the new Khalifa of the Muslims is Ali radiallahu anhu. So the greater Sahaba then gathered and they went to Ali radiallahu anhu, saying, "Oh Ali, we have to avenge the death of Uthman. So know that our pledge to you was not given in acceptance, and that those people of Fitna are guilty with the blood of Uthman, and they're getting away with it." So then Ali radiallahu anhu tells them, "Oh brothers, I'm not ignorant of what you know, but how should I deal with the people who control us and we do not control ourselves? They're in control of everything. So be patient until people calm down and their hearts settle in their places." He tells them, "Do you want to avenge the death of Uthman?" He said, "Yes." He says, "Take revenge. Go ahead." So they realize they have no power. So then he encouraged them to unite with him, and that as they grow in strength gradually, they can get rid of him. So he orders, no one from Quraysh leave Medina. So this upset the Quraysh at him. So then Ali radiallahu anhu, when he hears that they were upset at him, he gathers them. That I left you here because I need you. Do not separate. I need your opinion, and I have no support and no power without you. And this is the wise and intelligent opinion of Ali radiallahu anhu. But he was not obeyed. And the other Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they rushed. And he says, "O people, get rid of the A'rab who joined the people of Fitna." He tells them, go back to their places, trying to decrease the number of the people of Fitna. But they caught on to this. They said, "Wallahi, no one leaves." And he's supposed to be in charge, and he gives an order, and they go against it. When he saw that there's no hope in controlling the people from the inside, he tried to make the change from the outside. The way he thought about it, the Sahaba are not with him, the people of Fitna are in charge of Medina. The only way to get control is that if all corners of the Muslim Ummah give bay'ah, he can form armies from the outside. And he saw that the governors were from Bani Umayyah. They were people who were chosen by Uthman, and all of them are angry at the death of Uthman. So he knew they would not obey him, but they would follow the opinion of Talha and Zubair and those who wanted to avenge the death of Uthman. So he thought to himself radiallahu anhu that the only solution is to depose them and then put those who are going to obey him in their place. Then Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he heard of Ali's plan to change the governors. So he comes to him and tells him, "Do you want to remove all the governors?" He tells him, "Yes." He tells him, "Don't do it." He says, "Wallahi, if you try to depose them, they will hold to their positions and disobey you. So first take the pledge from them and then remove them." This is the wise decision of Abdullah ibn Abbas. And Ali radiallahu anhu refused. The scholars and the historians, looking back at this, they say this was the biggest mistake of Ali radiallahu anhu, that he didn't take the opinion of Ibn Abbas. So then he sends to Yemen Ubaydullah ibn Abbas, the governor that was put by Uthman. His name is Ya'li and he's from Bani Umayyah. And when he hears the news, he left, but he took all of the wealth with him. And of course he didn't take it for his personal use. And now Yemen is under the control of Ali radiallahu anhu. So then he sends Khalid ibn Sa'id ibn al-As al-Makhzumi to Mecca, and they refused him. So then he sent Qithm ibn al-Abbas, and they accepted him, but not for long, as we'll see. Then he sends Muhammad ibn Abi Hudayfa to Egypt, but he was killed. When Ali hears that his governor was killed, he sent Qais ibn Sa'ad ibn Ubadah, and he reaches them, and they welcomed him, and they pledged to him and to Ali, except for a small group of the companions. Then he sends Sahl ibn Hunayf to Sham, and as you know, Sham been under Muayyah for 20 years. So when Sahl ibn Hunayf goes, he reaches the area of Tabuk. The warriors come out in rows to meet him. 60,000 warriors who were ready to avenge the death of Uthman. They met him and he asked them, "Who are you?" And he says, "I am Sahl ibn Hunayf." And they said, "What is your business here?" And he said, "Amir." And they said, "If Uthman sent you, then welcome. And if others sent you, then go back." He tells them, "Have you not received the news of the murder of Uthman?" And they said, "Yes." He asked them, "Didn't you receive the news of the bay'ah to Ali?" They said, "Yes." So basically, they're telling him that yes, we know, but we don't accept. 60,000 warriors who have been seeing the blood of Uthman up on the minbar every day. They're ready to avenge his blood. People were crying and warriors were gathering under it, waiting for the command. So now Ali is not able to get control of Sham. Now he sends Uthman ibn Hunayf to Al-Basra. And the people there are separated. Some people are with Ali radiallahu anhu, other people are against him. And Abdullah ibn Amr was the governor. He refuses to pledge and he left Basra and went to Mecca. So now in Al-Kufa, the governor is Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. And he used to be known for staying away from Fitna. He hears of the pledge to Ali, he immediately gathers the people and takes their pledge to Ali. And he immediately sent a message to Ali saying that we have pledged to you. So then Ali radiallahu anh left him in his place because he's on his side. So Ali left him as governor of Kufa. So now Ali radiallahu anhu has a pledge in Mecca, but that's halfway. Like half the people there pledge to Ali, the others don't. Half of Basra, all of Yemen and all of Al-Kufa, but nothing at all in Asham. The situation is that if Asham pledges, then all of the Ummah more or less has pledged to Ali. So he tries to take the bay'ah from Muawiyah. So he sent him a message with a man called Subra al-Juhni, and he gives him a message demanding from him and from the people of Sham. In parts of the message he says, "Praise to Allah, whom there is no God besides. To proceed, you have heard what happened to Uthman, and the people pledged to me. So enter into this peace as the people have done. Wassalam." Very short letter, asking him to pledge to Ali. So Muawiyah, when he gets this letter, he says, "Give me time." The messenger, Subra al-Juhni, comes the next day. And Muawiyah tells him, "Give me time." And this continues for 3 months. And at the end of the 3 months, he didn't know what to do. Notice, he is not demanding the khilaf. He feels that he is the one who was entrusted to avenge the blood of Uthman. So should he pledge to Ali radiallahu anhu? Or if not, what should he do? Should he attack Medina to kill the people of Fitna? And they're embedded in the army of Ali, so then he'll have to fight Ali. So what should he do? So he lets Subra al-Juhmi return back to Ali. And he tells him, "What about your response?" He says, "My response will come." So he called 2 men from Bani Abs and Bani Rawaha, and he gave them a letter, a sealed letter. And he tells them, "Enter with this into Medina. And then when you enter, open it and raise it." So they arrived there and they opened it. It says that it's a message from Muawiyah to Ali. And Ali takes it to read it, and he finds nothing in it. It's blank. So he says to the messengers, "What is this?" So the man says, "Will I be safe? Can I speak freely and be safe?" He tells him, "Yes, because the messengers are not killed." He says, "I have come, leaving behind me a people that will not accept anything but retribution." He says, "I left 60,000 men crying under the garment of Uthman as it is hung up." They have dressed the pulpit, figuratively speaking, that they have hung it up on the pulpit of Dimashq with it. So then Ali says, "They demand the blood of Uthman from me? Am I not as upset over his death as you are?" Saying, "Oh Allah, I am innocent from the blood of Uthman." And then Ali radiallahu anhu says something. He says that the killers of Uthman, they got away from us. Except if Allah wills, for verily if He decrees something, it will happen. So he's saying that if we disagree like this, how are we ever going to kill the murderers of Uthman? And then he tells him to leave. The man says, "I leave and I will be safe," because now if he leaves, these people might attack him and kill him. So Ali says, "And you will be safe." So then when he left the masjid, he feels he's safe now. He screams out loud, "May Allah kill those who killed Uthman." Twice he yells this out loud. So the people of Fitna gathered around him and they insulted him. "This dog, he's a messenger of a dog, kill him." So he calls out, "O people of Mudar, O people of Qais, your support." So they came, Bani Abs, his people, they came to his aid. So the people of Fitna backed off and he threatens them. He tells them, "I swear by Allah, we will come to you with 4,000. He screams, "What they fear has come to them. Their deeds are done and their strength is over." And he's saying, by Allah, they know that they're defeated now. So when the people of Fitna saw that they were challenged, so they had a meeting. And Al-Ashtar al-Nukh'i said, let's leave and separate. And all of us leave Medina. So then Ibn Saba said, what a bad judgment. Let us infiltrate and mix with the army of Ali, so we're among his people and his close groups. And so they can't fight us except by fighting Ali with us. So they agreed upon that. So from then on, they never gathered together, but they always mixed with people. Wherever Ali was, they were mixed amongst that group and they would never leave him. Meanwhile, Abdullah ibn Umar decided to leave Al-Madinah. He had not pledged to Ali, but he still wanted to leave without letting him know. His position was that he would stay away from the fitna totally. So he goes at night to Kulthum, the daughter of Ali radiallahu anhu. So he goes to her, he tells her, I decided to go to Mecca to avoid the fitna. And I'm afraid that Ali will not think well of me, so tell him that I'm going to Mecca just to avoid the fitna. So in the morning, people wake up and they find that Abdullah ibn Umar is not around, and news reaches Ali radiallahu anhu. So they said to him, this is worse for you than the refusal of Talha and Zubair to give the bay'ah. Because they thought that Abdullah ibn Umar was going to Sham, to Syria, to Muawiyah, and there he was going to become the Khalifa, and everyone was going to pledge to Abdullah ibn Umar. And there they have an army of 60,000. So then Ali radiallahu anhu feared that the Ummah would be with two khulafa. So he prepares the army. He's preparing an army now just to stop Abdullah ibn Umar from getting to Sham. So now news of these preparations reaches Kulthum, and she tells him what happened. She tells him that he just said he's going to Mecca. So then Ali radiallahu anhu says, Wallahi, he is with me, trustworthy. Aisha radiallahu anha and the other mothers of the believers, they left Medina before the murder of Uthman radiallahu anhu. They left for Hajj in Mecca. And when the news reaches her of the death of Uthman, she says, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And then she waits to see what happens. And she hears the news of people pledging to Ali radiallahu anhu. And she knew that the companions won't pledge, and that Ali has no power over the people of Fitna. So she goes to the Haram in Mecca, and she sits in the Hijr of Ismail, and the partition was put up, and people gathered. And then she starts to call the people to gather and to prepare to kill the murderers of Uthman. By her estimation, Ali radiallahu anhu is powerless in Medina, and she wants to gather the people to go and avenge the death of Uthman. Abdullah ibn Amr, we mentioned him, he was the governor of Basra, put there by Uthman. He left and he went to Mecca. And when he heard this, he said, I will be the first to join this army. And Talha and Zubair and others gathered to go and kill the murderers of Uthman. So now, the governor of Ali in Mecca, he saw that he has no control, so he went back to Medina. Then joining them is also Ya'li ibn Umayyah. You remember him from Yemen. He's the one who took all the wealth. He arrives in Mecca and he finds the army looking for money to help raise the army. So he brings them the wealth, saying, I gathered it during the reign of Uthman, so take it. And he had with him 600 camels and 600,000 dirhams. So this is excellent assistance in preparing the army. So there are 1,000 warriors prepared now, under the army of Aisha radiallahu anha and Talha and Zubair. Where should they go now? Where should this army head? Should they go to Medina? And they say no, it's the place of the people of Fitna, and Ali radiallahu anhu won't allow it, and we don't want to fight Ali. Should they go to Sham? They found that Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is in charge of Sham and he's on their side. So Abdullah ibn Amr, who said he was the former governor of Basra, he says, let us go to Al-Basra. I used to be their governor there and the people there respect me, so let's head there. So they start to head to Al-Basra. And the people start to hear of the army of the mothers of the believers, Aisha radiallahu anha, and they start to join this army. In no time, the army now consists of 3,000 warriors. Hafsa and the rest of the mothers of the believers left out with the army, because at this point they were thinking that they're going to Medina. But then when it became that the army is going to Basra, the mothers of the believers went back. But Hafsa radiallahu anha said, My opinion is that of Aisha, and she left with Aisha. So now Aisha and Hafsa radiallahu anhum are going to Basra, but Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhum hears of Hafsa, she's his sister, and he came to her and he said, go back. And Hafsa radiallahu anha goes back to Mecca. When this army of Aisha radiallahu anha left Mecca, the women and the people and everyone came out crying over the death of Uthman. So the people of the army themselves started to cry, and the voices were raised with weeping and crying, so much so that it became known as the day of Nahib. So now all the great companions and all those of Bani Umayyah went out with Talha and Zubair, Al-Walid ibn Uqba and Sa'id ibn al-As, and Al-Marwan ibn al-Hakam from Bani Umayyah, and not to mention al-Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu anha. And the army advances. So then Ali radiallahu anhu hears of the news of this army, and at first he says, we'll leave them alone. And then he thought to himself and says, if I could convince them to join me, then that would be better. So he had an army prepared to attack Al-Basra. This is when he found no bay'ah in Al-Basra, he prepared an army to attack it. And the people were asking him, how are you going to attack a people who are not fighting against you? And then he tells them, if every governor says, I'm not going to pledge and I'm staying with my region, I'm still in charge of them, he says the ummah will be separated. So we have to take the pledge by force. So in the sight of Ali radiallahu anhu, the ummah separating like this was a bigger fitna than killing the murderers of Uthman right now or a little later. When he heads out, this is when he was on his way to Basra, he hears the news of the army of Mecca, and he thought that it's better to stop them before they reach Basra. So now at this point there are three armies. There is a major army in Sham, and it's not doing anything at the moment. And then there is an army that's moving towards Basra, and that is the army of Talha and Zubair and Aisha radiallahu anha. And then there's the army of Ali radiallahu anhu, and he only had 700 men, and he's attempting to stop Talha and Zubair. But as news of him approaching grew, his army grew, and became anywhere from 1,000 to up to 3,000 warriors. So now the people of Basra, they hear of this army coming to them. And Uthman ibn Hunayth, he was the governor that was put there by Ali radiallahu anhu. He had the choice now, does he accept this army or does he stop this army? And we understand the army has in it Aisha radiallahu anha. So these are the divisions that the Muslim Ummah was upon. So then when the army of Aisha radiallahu anha and Talha and Zubair reached near Al-Basra, Umayr ibn Abdullah al-Tamimi came to the mother of the believers and he said, O mother of the believers, I ask you by Allah to write to them. Perhaps they'll agree to what you're calling them. So she likes his idea. So she told Ibn Amr, and he was, as we said, the former governor of Basra. People liked him there and they knew him. So she tells him to enter into Al-Basra and to inform the people of their intention, that they're gathering there so they can get their revenge and avenge the death of Uthman. So he agrees. So she sent him and he entered secretly into Al-Basra. And she also gave letters to the leaders of Al-Basra. So then Abdullah ibn Amr enters and he finds the people with different views. Some don't want to participate at all, and others are with the view that there should be with the army of Ali radiallahu anhu and not that of Talha and Zubair and Aisha. So they refused to go out. So then Uthman ibn Hunayth, who was the governor of Ali, he heard of this army coming and he starts to prepare an army. In case they start to enter Basra by force, he's going to send this army to stop them. And he was afraid that people are not going to rally behind them, because the army has in it the mother of the believers. So he sent Imran ibn Hussein and Abu al-Aswad al-Du'ali to find out the state of mind of the people. And he also sent them to Aisha to see what the intent of their army is. They went back to the governor of Basra, Uthman ibn Hunayf, and they let him know that the army is only here because they want to kill the murderers of Uthman, and they're here without the permission of Ali. They decide to stay as they are. Whoever wants to go join them, then that's okay. And if they want to stay in Basra, they stay. But he says, I will not allow them to enter Basra without the permission of the Amir of the Mu'mineen. The governor Uthman ibn Hunayf knew that now Basra is divided. The people who want to join the army and people who don't. Now the army of Aisha drew near, came right to the outskirts of Basra, and they camped there. So Uthman ibn Hunayf, the governor, he came out with his army and they camped right in front of them. So he didn't want to let them to enter Basra. And when the armies got near each other, Talha radiallahu anhu got up and he started talking to the people, explaining why they had come. After he spoke his army, they started to yell, Sadaqt, Sadaqt, a truthful speech, you have spoken the truth. So when the people of Fitna and the army of Uthman, the governor of Basra, heard them, and why were the people of Fitna in the army of Uthman? Because if you remember, the groups left from Basra, groups left from Kufa, and they went to Medina. And some people remained in control of Medina, while others returned back to Basra. So now some of the people of Fitna were in the army of Basra, facing the army of the mothers of the believers, and Talha and Zubair. They said, you have lied. And they started to curse and to cuss at Talha radiallahu anhu. So then as Zubair radiallahu anhu got up to speak, and he wanted to encourage them to join their cause. And when he was done, his army told him, Sadaqt wa barart. And then the people of Fitna responded, Bal kadhabt wa fajart. No respect for the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. So then when Aisha radiallahu anha saw differences to this degree, she asked to speak. And everyone was quiet. And she gave a powerful khutbah. And she said that the truth is that we have not come to remove nor to challenge Uthman ibn Hunayf, but how can we keep quiet about the blood of Uthman? And after her speech, the army of Uthman ibn Hunayf split in two. Part of the army said, Sadaqti wa bararti. You've spoken the truth. And a group said, Bal kadhabat wa fajarat. And she is the mother of the believers. And they're speaking like that. Now the two groups in the army of Uthman ibn Hunayf started to insult each other. And then Hukaym ibn Jabala, the thief amongst the people of Fitna, saw that the army of Mecca is increasing. He feared that if everyone joins them, they're going to be uncovered. The people of Fitna are going to be the only ones. And then they're going to be destroyed. So he and those who were with him immediately got up and started the fighting. They attacked the army of Talha and Zubair and Aisha radiallahu anha. So then Aisha ordered the soldiers to hold back and to defend themselves only, but not to kill them. And Hukaym ibn Jabala had ordered those with him to attack fiercely. And Aisha keeps ordering people to pull back because they were not there to fight them until nighttime came, and then the two armies separated. So now Aisha radiallahu anha wanted to consult with those in her army what to do. So they decided to move to another place. So the news of this reaches Hukaym ibn Jabala, and he gets those who are with him ready to fight again. And right after Fajr, they attack again. And the battle remained from Fajr until Dhuhr. Until now, the army of Aisha radiallahu anha, they're only defending themselves. But then when they saw that the others insist on killing them, Talha and Zubair radiallahu anhuma ordered they should fight back. And then the losses start to come down on the army of Hukaym ibn Jabala, who's amongst the army of Uthman ibn Hunayf. And notice that Uthman radiallahu anhu, the governor, never ordered the attack. So many of people were wounded from the army of Aisha radiallahu anha, but many people died from the army of Hukaym. And when they felt that they're going to be defeated, they asked for peace. And then Aisha radiallahu anha immediately stopped the fighting. So then they began to negotiate. And Uthman ibn Hunayf sent to them, saying, aren't you bound by a pledge to Ali? So why don't we wait for the decision of the Khalifa? So they said, we have no bay'ah. Our bay'ah was by force. So then the discussion becomes whether their bay'ah was by force or by their own decision. So they said to Uthman ibn Hunayf, if we really were coerced into giving the bay'ah, are we not correct in wanting to avenge the death of Uthman? He said, yes. Then they said, what if it's proven that you gave the pledge and you gave it on your own decision? They said, if that's the case, then the decision is that of the Khalifa, and we are in the wrong and we will pull back. So they wrote out an agreement, and they sent a man by the name of Ka'b ibn Sur. He was a judge, the judge of Basra. He was a pious man, and he was a great scholar. So Ka'b ibn Sur radiallahu anhu goes to Medina with the intent to investigate. And when he arrives there, Ali is not there, obviously. He went out with his army to stop Talha and Zubair. He's still on his way there. And he was known, his position was known amongst the Muslims. So the people gathered to hear what he's going to say. So he said, "O people of Medina, I am the messenger of the people of Al-Basra to you. Did the people coerce Talha and Zubair upon the pledge to Ali, or did they come out of their own will?" And no one responds. And why is that? Because the people of Fitna are still in charge of Medina. And if you speak, you'll get killed. So then he asked them, "By Allah, you have to answer me or fighting will break out." So then Usama ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu stands up and says, they did not pledge except while they were coerced, they were forced. So then a man by the name of Tammam, one of the leaders of the people of Fitna, he gets up and he raises his sword to kill Usama ibn Zayd. The governor of Medina, Sahl ibn Hunayf, he gets up and he stops him. And he was saved by Suhaib al-Rumi radiallahu anhu. He pulls him, he physically has to pull him out of the people. So then Usama ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu says, "La wallah, I'm not going to wait and let people get killed and stay quiet." So Ka'b ibn Sur takes this response and he goes back to Al-Basra. So Sahl ibn Hunayf immediately sent news of what happened to Ali radiallahu anhu. And Ali knows that if Ka'b goes to Al-Basra with this news, all of them are going to join the army of Mecca. So immediately he sends a letter to Ka'b ibn Sur. So Ali radiallahu anhu is trying to convince Ka'b ibn Sur not to go with this news to Basra. It's only going to cause more problems. But Ka'b ibn Sur never received this letter. So people came to ask Uthman ibn Hunayf, according to our agreement, Talha and Zubair are in the right. And Uthman ibn Hunayf, the governor, tells him, "I have received a letter from Amir al-Mu'mineen and it tells me these are the orders in it and I'm going to obey him." So the people were divided. Some joined the army of Mecca and some stayed with the army of Uthman ibn Hunayf. So the people of Fitna saw that things are not in their favor now. So they started to think, how can they get out of this situation? So the only way to get out of this situation, they gathered and they began the fighting again. And every time things are about to settle down, they start to fight again. And then fierce fighting takes place. And Aisha radiallahu anha is calling them to stop and they refuse. And she orders a man to go out and to yell, to say, "We only want the murderers of Uthman. We will not fight except with those who killed Uthman. Whoever did not take part in the murder of Uthman, let him leave the battlefield." And as soon as he does, Hukaym ibn Jabala gets to him and he kills him. So then the fierce fighting continues. And many people are killed. And Hukaym ibn Jabala, he was a fierce warrior. But a man from the army of Mecca was able to reach him. And the man got him and he cut off his leg. And then this man comes to finish him off, but Hukaym got up and he took his cut leg and he hits the man in the face. So then he got up on one leg and he hopped, and 70 people gathered around him. And he encourages them to fight and he tells them never to surrender. So the fighting grows even more fierce. And a man from Bani Abdul Qais heard Hukaym ibn Jabala murmuring something. So he said, "What are you saying?" And he finds Hukaym cursing Aisha radiallahu anha. So the man tells him, "You son of a wicked woman, you cursed the mother of the believers?" So then Hukaym took a spear and he killed this man. So this made Bani Abdul Qais leave the battlefield. So then Hukaym dies. So the army of Mecca starts to kill the people of Fitna left and right. So they ran. So Aisha called to their people and to their tribes, saying, "We only want the murders of Uthman, so hand them over to us." And each tribe started to hand over those of its kinsmen who took part in the murder of Uthman. Their people from their tribe pull them from their feet and give them to the army of Mecca. And they killed all 600 men. except Hurqus ibn Zuhair. All of the others were killed. Hurqus ibn Zuhair went to his people, and they were taken over by tribalism, because he's one of their nobles, so they refused to turn him over. When the army of Aisha radiallahu anha comes demanding to deliver Hurqus, they refused, and they came out to meet them with 6,000 warriors. And they said, we will not turn him over except with our blood. This is how the event in Al-Basra ended, and now Talha and Zubair enter the masjid to talk to Uthman ibn Hunayf at the time of Isha. So Uthman ibn Hunayf was at his home, and he was delayed. So they sent a group of people to go and bring Uthman ibn Hunayf to the masjid to turn over Al-Basra. So this delegation insisted, and he refused. So they insulted him, and they hit him in his home, and then they started to pull his beard and plucked his beard until not a hair was left on his face. And then they pulled him physically to Talha and Zubair. So when they saw this, they were shocked. We didn't order you to do this to the man. So they sent to Aisha radiallahu anha, and she says, leave him alone. So he leaves, he goes to Ali immediately. And when Ali heard the news and how many innocent people were killed in the battles of Basra, and how it was taken by force, and how they did this to his governor, he said, now it is halal to fight. So now the army of Zubair and Talha and Aisha radiallahu anha grew substantially, and this encouraged them even more. So then the army of Aisha radiallahu anha grew to 30,000 warriors. And Ali radiallahu anhu only had 10,000. And the people of Fitna were embedded in his army. And when he saw their strength increased, he heads to Al-Kufa. Because there were many who supported Ali. And he goes to ask for their help. And he says, I have chosen you in the letter to assist in the religion of Allah, so we can bring the ummah back to being united and to become brothers again. So then Abu Musa radiallahu anhu, he got up and he spoke. And he tells the people, this is a fitna, don't take part in this. And this is the governor of Ali radiallahu anhu advising his people against what Ali wants. So no one at all goes out to join the army of Ali. So now the governor of Ali is also on the opinion of Talha and Zubair. So he sends Al-Hasan and Ammar ibn Yasir radiallahu anhu, and they entered the masjid and the people gathered. So they spoke to Abu Musa. Al-Hasan began and he said, why are you stopping the people from aiding us? Wallahi, we only want to make things right. You do not fear Ali that he might do some injustice to people. He's a just man. And he tells him, you have spoken the truth, may my father and mother be sacrificed for you. But the one who is consulted is entrusted, meaning I have to be truthful to you, you're consulting me. And I have heard the Prophet ﷺ say, there will be a fitna, and Allah has made us brothers and made our blood and wealth unlawful. So now who should the people listen to? Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiallahu anhu, and he has good arguments, or should they listen to the grandson of the Prophet ﷺ? So then Ammar ibn Yasir, he got up and he said, Abu Musa has spoken the truth, but help Amir al-Mu'mineen. So then Al-Hasan says to Ammar, sit down, you're not the one for this task. So then he calls Al-Qa'qa'. He said, O people of Kufa, I am to you an advisor and I care for you, and I want what is good for you, and I will tell you that which is the truth. As for what was said by the Amir Abu Musa, it is the truth. But there is no place for it now. We're in a situation now where we have to take action in order to fix the fitna. He says it is necessary to have an authority to organize people and to support the oppressed. And this is Amir al-Mu'mineen. You have given him bay'ah, and he has called you time and time again. And you have to assist him to support the oppressed and humiliate the oppressor. And he calls you to rectify conditions. He's telling people to go out to him, to Ali radiallahu anhu. And then Al-Hasan says, respond to your Amir and go to your brothers. Wallahi, the people of stature and intelligence and position call upon you to respond to them. And the Amir of the believers says, I have come out either oppressing or oppressed. If you find me oppressed, help me. And if you find me to be oppressing, fight me. And then he says, and Wallahi, Talha and Zubair were the first to give me bay'ah and the first to leave me. And then he says to them, have I stolen wealth, or have I changed the laws of Allah so you don't obey me? So get up and command the good and forbid the evil. So then when Al-Hasan said that, the people got up and they went out with him and they left Abu Musa radiallahu anhu. And with that, 10,000 warriors came from Kufa to join the army of Ali. So now Ali radiallahu anhu moves to meet the army of Talha and Zubair. And he doesn't want to fight with them initially. So he sent a man, and he is Al-Qa'qa' ibn Amr radiallahu anhu. And he went to Aisha radiallahu anha. And he asked her, "O mother, what brought you here to this town?" And she says, "O son, to make amends between the people." And he told her, call for Talha and Zubair, and they came. And then Al-Qa'qa' says, "I have asked the mother of the believers, what has brought her here?" And she said, "To make amends between people." "So what do you say? Do you agree or disagree?" And they said, "We agree." "Tell me, what is it that you came to amend? What is it that you came to fix?" And he says, "Wallahi, if we know what it is, we will help you in it." So they said, "The murderers of Uthman, this is what we came to fix." So then Al-Qa'qa' radiallahu anhu says, "You have killed the murderers of Uthman from the people of Al-Basra. That which you came for caused more problems than the death of Uthman." And then he tells them, if you can't get to this one man and you leave him, then you leave the Quran. And if you want to get to him, you will have the fitna of having to fight 6,000. So you were better before you left than today. So it shows how wise Al-Qa'qa' radiallahu anhu was. So then Aisha radiallahu anha tells him, "So what do you say then?" And then he says, "I say that this issue can be resolved by calming things down. If it calms down and the Khalifa is in charge, we can easily capture Hurqus ibn Zuhair. So if you give us the pledge, then it is a sign of good and a glad tidings of mercy, and we will get revenge with you. And if you refuse except to pursue this, then it's a bad sign. So pursue what is right and don't expose us to tribulations that will overtake us and it will overtake you as well." So these are the words of Al-Qa'qa' radiallahu anhu. So then they thought about it, and then they said to Al-Qa'qa', "You have spoken the truth." And then they said to him, "If Ali comes and he is upon your opinion, then this affair will be upright. So we're not going to pledge, but we're going to wait. We'll give him a chance, and if things settle down and he kills the murderers of Uthman, then that's what we want. But if things settle down and he doesn't kill the murderers of Uthman, then we're going to go out and we're going to kill him ourselves. If Ali agrees to these stipulations, we're going to be with him." They agreed, and Al-Qa'qa' immediately goes to Ali radiallahu anhu and he tells him. And Ali was satisfied and he was very happy. So then Ali got up to speak and he praised Allah. And then he says, "I am, insha'Allah, tomorrow returning. So leave as well." He's saying, everyone leave, everyone go back. And then he said, "Let not anyone who helped against Uthman in any way come out with me." Now that the army of Mecca is with him, so now you can see the signs of strength showing up already. And the people spent that night, and it was the best night spent since the death of Uthman. At the same time, it was the worst night for the people who murdered Uthman. So their leaders met and they discussed, and they came with only one solution, is not to allow the people to agree. And the only way to do that is to begin the fighting again. Before Fajr, the people were asleep and they were in utmost peace and tranquility. No one is expecting any attacks or any killing. The people of Fitna get up, and suddenly they start killing the people around them. So in the army of Ali, they get up and they start killing the people while they're sleeping. And in the army of Mecca, they start killing the people who are sleeping there. While they're killing everyone, they're yelling, "They have betrayed us, they have betrayed us." So they're creating this commotion. So each army now, they wake up and they hear they've betrayed us, and they see killing and commotion, and they think the other army has attacked them by surprise. So suddenly fighting breaks out in the battle of Al-Jamal, which took place on the 5th of Jumad al-Akhirah in the 36th year after the Hijrah. The people were fighting and killing each other in the dark. And then Ali radiallahu anhu got up and he asked, "What's going on?" And they said, "They have betrayed us." And Talha and Zubair on the other side, they get up and ask, "What is happening?" And they said, "We're betrayed by the army of Ali." And it's difficult at this point to investigate. So then Ali radiallahu anhu sent to the leaders of the army of Aisha radiallahu anha. First he sends to Talha, and Talha radiallahu anhu comes to him. And they come close until the necks of their animals cross. And then Ali tells him, you have prepared men and you have prepared weapons. If you have prepared an excuse with Allah, am I not your brother in Islam? So what has made my blood halal all of a sudden? Talha tells him, you turned on us. And then Ali tells him, did you not pledge to me? And Talha says, I pledged to you with the sword at my neck. And then Ali tells him, you fight with me, and with me is Ammar. Because the Prophet ﷺ had said to Ammar that you will be killed by the transgressing party. So then Talha turns back and he starts to think about this. And then Ali sent a man to Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhuma. And when he reached Ali radiallahu anhu, he dismounts. And he goes to Ali radiallahu anhu, and Ali dismounts and he embraced him. And he said, Wallahi, I love you in Allah. And then Abdullah ibn Zubayr says, and I wallahi love you for the sake of Allah. He tells him, woe to you, O son of my brother, wait, what brings you here? He says, we came to seek revenge from the murderers of Uthman. And then Ali says, may Allah kill the murderers of Uthman. Then Abdullah Zubayr leaves. And Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, his father, comes. And he comes close so that the necks of the riding animals cross. And Ali tells him, what brought you? And Zubayr says, we came to revenge the death of Uthman. So then Ali says, may Allah kill those who murdered Uthman. Did you not pledge to me? And Zubayr tells him that I pledged to you with the sword at my neck. You fight against me and Ammar is with me. So then Zubayr was quiet. He tells him, oh Zubayr, do you remember when you passed with the Messenger of Allah? So he looked at me, meaning the Prophet ﷺ, looked at Ali and smiled. So I smiled back at him. And you said, the son of Abi Talib doesn't stop his boasting. So then the Prophet ﷺ said to you, Ali is telling him, he is not boasting, and wallahi you will fight him while you are the oppressor. So then Az-Zubayr radiallahu anhu said, wallahi I have forgotten. This was 30 years ago. He had forgotten this incident. So he was so moved by this and so shocked by it. So he leaves the battlefield. And he doesn't want to fight anyone. The army of Ali radiallahu anhu, when the fighting took place, of all the people in the army of Mecca, they were afraid of Az-Zubayr and Abdullah ibn Zubayr, his son, and a man by the name of Ibn Yathribi. These three warriors. And the army of Basra, the army of Aisha and Talha and Zubayr, they only feared Ali and Al-Qa'qa' ibn Amr al-Tamimi and Al-Ashtar al-Nukhai. These three fierce warriors. So they were afraid of those people. So when Zubayr radiallahu anhu leaves the battlefield, son Abdullah hears the news and he goes to his father and he tells him, oh father, where to? And Zubayr says, wallahi I will not fight them. He says, oh father, you gathered the people, then you run away? And he tells him, leave me alone. And then Abdullah, his son, tells him, perhaps you are afraid of the swords of Bani Abdul Muttalib. So then his father becomes angry and he tells him, wallahi, there is not a handspan on my body except that there is a wound in the way of Allah, even my private part. Accusing me of being afraid. So he leaves radiallahu anhu. And when he left, a man by the name of Ibn Jurmuz followed him. And when he comes near him, they're on their way to Mecca, Zubayr turned around and when he saw Ibn Jurmuz, he says, I see death in his face, meaning he's coming to kill me. And the servant who is with Az-Zubayr, traveling with Az-Zubayr, says, kill him then. Before he kills you, kill him. So then Az-Zubayr radiallahu anhu says, with what excuse should I kill him? So then Ibn Jurmuz comes to him and he tells him that I want your companionship on this journey. So then Az-Zubayr let him join them. And when it was time for Salah, Az-Zubayr radiallahu anhu said, As-Salah. And Ibn Jurmuz said, As-Salah. And then Az-Zubayr radiallahu anhu advanced ahead, and the servant and Ibn Jurmuz were in the back. And as soon as he made takbir radiallahu anhu, Ibn Jurmuz attacked him with his knife, and he killed him. And then he took his armor and his shield and his sword. And even though this great man is one of the 10 given glad tidings of paradise, he murders him in such a way while he's praying. So we move now to the battle of Al-Jamal. Ibn Yathribi comes out, and he was one of the most feared. And he challenges who wants to come out to fight him. So the first man goes out to him, and he kills him. And the second man from the army of Ali goes out to him and kills him again. And the third man from the army of Ali radiallahu anhu goes out, kills him. So then everyone's afraid of him. So then Ammar ibn Yasir radiallahu anhu, who was 90 years old at the time, went out to him. So when he went out, everyone started to say, Yarhamullah, he's going to die, may Allah have mercy on him. When he reaches him, Ibn Yathribi attacks him. And he swings at him with his sword, and Ammar blocks it with his shield. His sword gets stuck in the shield, and he's not able to pull it out. So then Ammar radiallahu anhu strikes his leg, and he takes him captive to Ali. And when he gets there, he's asking to be forgiven. And then Ali radiallahu anhu tells him, you killed 3 and now you want to be forgiven? And he had him killed. Meanwhile, when the battle was going on, Ali radiallahu anhu can't believe that the Sahaba are fighting each other. This is the first time that this has happened so far. So he stays away from the battlefield, and he's praying and he's crying all the time behind the army. And leading the army instead of him was Al-Ashtar al-Nukh'i, and he was also a very fierce warrior. The army of Aisha radiallahu anha was being led by Abdurrahman ibn Utayb ibn Usayd. Talha radiallahu anhu was also behind the army, and on this side Ali is behind his army. And Aisha radiallahu anha is in Basra, because after the peace that they made, she went and she stayed in a house in Basra. So she's not there in the battlefield at the moment. So Ibn Jarmuz then comes to the tent of Ali radiallahu anhu. And the Ibn Jarmuz is the man, remember, who killed Zubair. So he tells him, what is it that you have? And the man says, I have the good news. So he gave him the sword and the shield of Zubair radiallahu anhu. And Ali radiallahu anhu, he looks at it and he starts to cry. He says, and how many times has this sword defended the face of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So the guard goes out to him and he tells him, Ali says, give the killer of the son of Safiya the news of the hellfire. So the man becomes afraid and he runs away. And some companions later on, they hear of this, so they follow him. And when they came close to him, Ibn Jarmuz says, if we fight with you, and if we kill with you, we are in the hellfire. And if we fight you, we're in the hellfire. So he takes his sword and he kills himself. Meanwhile, the battle is still continuing. And Ka'b ibn Sur, if you remember him, the judge who went to Medina to find out if the pledge was by force or not, he left the battlefield and he ran back to Basra, to Aisha radiallahu anha. Aisha doesn't know radiallahu anha, the people are fighting right now. So she goes and they put a hawdaj on the camel, and they cover the hawdaj with armor, and they cover the camel with armor, and he takes her out to the battlefield. He leads the camel into the battlefield, hoping that if the people see her, they're going to stop the fighting. When she arrives, the people saw the camel and they knew that Aisha radiallahu anha was inside the camel. And she called Ka'b and said, leave the camel and take the Mus'haf, the Book of Allah, and go out and call people to the judgment of the Book of Allah. Stop the fighting. So the people of Fitna, they felt that this is going to stop the fighting, and then they're going to be uncovered again. So they yelled, get the camel and get Ka'b. As soon as he lifted the Mus'haf to call to the people, they shot him with arrows and killed him radiallahu anhu. So then the people of the Fitna started to yell, go towards the camel. So Aisha yells at them to stop the fighting. And Ali radiallahu anhu is yelling, stop the fighting. And the people of Fitna are continuing. And they make it more intense. So people are forced to defend themselves and fight back. And then Aisha saw that the fighting is not going to stop. So she starts to make dua out loud. Oh Allah, curse the murderers of Uthman. Oh Allah, curse the murderers of Uthman. The people hear that, and the whole army starts to say that. And then Ali radiallahu anhu heard. And he gets up radiallahu anhu, and he begins to say the same thing. Oh Allah, curse the murderers of Uthman. So both armies are now fighting, and both of them are calling for the curse of Allah on the murderers of Uthman. So then Abdullah ibn Utab, as we said, the emir of the army of Aisha and Talha and Zubair, he begins to move the camel away from the battlefield. And the people of Fitna want to bring down the camel. See how wicked they are. So he takes it by the reins, and the people of Fitna head towards the camel until they killed Abdurrahman ibn Utab ibn Usayd. So then another companion takes the camel, and he's killed. And another takes it, and he's killed. And then Talha radiallahu anhu started to make dua. This is behind the battlefield. He says, Allahumma, make me a sacrifice for Uthman. If I have not done enough for his death, then avenge from me. So an arrow then suddenly comes flying, and it hit him in his knee joint. And it struck a major vein, and blood starts to flow. Then Al-Qa'qa' from the army of Ali radiallahu anhu comes to Talha, and he says, Ya Aba Muhammad, you're wounded. They were fighting for what they believed to be the truth, but they didn't have hatred for each other or anything like that. So the servant removes Talha radiallahu anhu from the battlefield, and they puts him in an abandoned home, and there dies Talha ibn Ubaidullah radiallahu anhu, one of the 10 given glad tidings of paradise. So the battle is still continuing, and the fighting becomes more fierce. So then the people of Fitna start to yell, to strike the limbs. Everyone around the camel, this is where the battle is the fiercest at. They're fighting and limbs are being cut, so much so that they describe saying that you wouldn't know whose hand this was and whose leg this was. Hundreds of limbs being cut left and right. So here Abdullah ibn Zubair advances, and he takes hold of the camel, and he orders his army to attack the standard of the army of Ali. And then the fighting is fierce in two areas, around the standard of the army of Ali radiallahu anhu, and around the camel of Aisha radiallahu anha. And the standard of Ali falls 10 times. So Al-Ashtar al-Nukh'i then he felt that the army is being defeated, and he's on the side of Ali. And then Al-Ashtar leaves the battlefield, and he goes to Ali radiallahu anhu, and he tells him, Oh Ali, help us, for wallahi we have seen defeat, and wallahi if you don't come to the battlefield we'll be defeated. So Ali radiallahu anhu got up, and he went out to the battlefield, and this rekindles their hope. People start shooting arrows at the camel of Aisha radiallahu anha. And Ali radiallahu anhu is telling them to leave the camel alone, but the people of Fitna don't obey him. Then Al-Ashtar and Al-Qa'qa' they advance at the head of a regiment towards the camel, and Ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu is protecting the camel. So then Al-Ashtar comes to fight Abdullah ibn Zubayr. We have two warriors, two champions, and known to be great heroes in battle, fighting against each other. And they're both the leaders of the armies. So Abdullah ibn Zubayr says, Wallahi, I have never seen the likes of the fighting of Al-Ashtar. He says, I did not hit him once, except that he hits me back 6 or 7 times. And this is Abdullah ibn Zubayr speaking. So Al-Ashtar was a fantastic warrior. So Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu starts to lose. And even though he's wearing an armor, he gets 37 wounds from Al-Ashtar. And Ashtar lifted the sword, and he brought it down and struck the head of Abdullah ibn Zubayr until he cracked his helmet and cracked his skull. And Abdullah ibn Zubayr was about to die. He's going to be defeated. So when he saw that he's about to die, he jumped off of his horse and jumped on Al-Ashtar and embraced him hard and felled him to the floor and just held him in his place. And he started to yell, kill me and Malik with me. Kill me along with Malik. Abdullah ibn Zubayr is not able to say kill me, and Al-Ashtar, he just said Malik. And Al-Ashtar says about this, he says, I would not love to have the whole world if he would have said Al-Ashtar. Wallahi, if he said Al-Ashtar, 1,000 swords would have struck me. Ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu is still holding on to him. So then a friend of Ibn Zubayr comes, and he pulls him out from underneath Al-Ashtar, and Al-Ashtar immediately went away. So then Ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu was removed, and he was severely wounded, so he was taken to Basra. And another companion took the camel, and he was killed, until 70 Sahaba were killed at the camel. Then Al-Qa'qa' and Al-Ashtar reached the camel, and Al-Qa'qa' was afraid for Aisha radiallahu anha, and he feared that more of the Sahaba will get killed. He starts to yell to everyone to pull back. Muhammad ibn Talha came, and he took the camel, and he was killed as well, the son of Talha ibn Ubaidullah. So Al-Qa'qa' then began to call people to retreat, and he called them to take the camel and go away, take the camel and leave with it. So a man by the name of Zufar ibn al-Harith took the camel, and Al-Qa'qa' yells to him, strike the camel, the legs of the camel, so it may fall and end the battle. So Zufar and another man named Bujair, they struck the legs of the camel, and the camel fell. When the camel falls, the army of Ali still comes to attack, and then Al-Qa'qa' stands in their path, and he says, we have given them pardon. So then the fighting finally stops. Al-Qa'qa' was the hero here. He stopped the massacre, and then Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr comes with him, and Ammar ibn Yasir, and then they cut the ropes of the Hawdaj, and then they put it down, and then they put a tent over it. So then Ali radiallahu anhu comes to see the situation of Aisha. So then he comes and he asks them, is she wounded? And they say no. And he enters into her tent, and she's still inside the Hawdaj. And he tells her, Assalamu alaikum ya ummah. And she says, Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Then he asks her, how are you? And she says, I'm fine. And then he tells her, Ya Allah, have mercy on you. And she tells him, and on you. And then he orders Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr and Ammar ibn Yasir to take her into the town, into Basra. And then Ali radiallahu anhu sends orders, you're not to kill a wounded person, nor to chase anyone who has run away from the battlefield, nor to take any captives. So the people of Fitna become upset. They said, you make their blood halal, but not their women and their wealth? Ali radiallahu anhu, in his wisdom, then he asked them a question. He tells them, which of you wants Aisha to fall to his share? So they were quiet. So he tells them again, no captives, no spoils, no killing of the wounded, and no killing of people who run away. So no spoils at all were taken or distributed amongst either of the army. Ali radiallahu anhu orders the dead from both armies to be gathered for prayer and for burial. And he leads the prayers himself, the funeral prayers radiallahu anhu. And the total of the number of people who died during this battle were 10,000. 5,000 from each army. And Ali radiallahu anhu would walk around the dead, looking at who's dead. And then he reached Ka'b ibn Sur, the judge of Basra, and one of the scholars of the Ummah. So Ali radiallahu anhu, when he saw him, he started to cry. He said, how can they say only the layman came out with them, and this great scholar is amongst them? And then he saw Muhammad ibn Talha, the son of Talha radiallahu anhu. And when he saw him, Ali radiallahu anhu began to cry a lot and said, this is the one whom we used to call As-Sajjad because of how much he prostrates to Allah. And now he's murdered here. And then he went to Basra, and he heard of the death of Talha ibn Ubaydullah, and he took the head of Talha and put it on his lap, and he removed the dust from the face of Talha radiallahu anhu, and he began to cry, and his voice was raised in crying. Then he goes to where Ibn Zubair was, Abdullah ibn Zubair. Remember, he was wounded during the battle severely, and he enters upon him and he embraces him, and Ibn Zubair can barely move, and he makes dua for him, and he tells him, may Allah have mercy on you, O son of my brother. What brought you back? He says, we came to take revenge from the murderers of Uthman. And then Ali tells him, may Allah kill the murderers of Uthman. And then Ali radiallahu anhu remains for 3 days outside of Basra, and then he enters it and he prays in the masjid, and the people come to give him bay'ah. So people come by the hundreds and they start to pledge to Ali radiallahu anhu. And then he goes to the house of Abdullah ibn Khalaf. He was one of the leaders there, and he had a large house, and this is where Aisha radiallahu anha was staying, and where all the wounded and from the armies were staying there also. So when he enters, he finds women there, and the women there were crying over the death of Uthman and Abdullah, the sons of Khalaf. So then a woman of the relatives, her name was Safiya bint al-Harith, she was crying, and when she saw Ali radiallahu anha enter, she said, O Ali, O killer of the loved ones, O the one who split the unity, may Allah make your children orphans as you have done to the sons of Abdullah. So then Ali radiallahu anhu did not respond to her, and he entered upon Aisha and he sat down, and then he made dua for Aisha radiallahu anha, and he asked her if she needed anything, and she said no, and then he left. Then when he left again, Safiya bint al-Harith again, she saw him, and she made dua against him, and she spoke very harshly to him. So then he tells her, he said, I considered to open these doors and kill the ones behind them. So he's telling her, I know who's behind these doors. These were the people that fought against me. And if you think I'm a brutal person as you thought, I would open these doors and kill the people who were wounded in there. She understood that he was a good man, he was a righteous man. So she remained quiet. So then a man from Al-Uzd, he heard this, the way she spoke to Ali, and it upset him. And he said, Wallahi, we won't let this woman get away with this. So then Ali radiallahu anhu becomes angry with this man. He tells him, be quiet. And he tells him, let me not hear of anyone who harms any woman, except that I will give him to the worst of people. And then a man came after him saying, if this is your view, if I saw two men at the door insulting a woman dearer to you than Safiya. So then Ali tells him, woe to you, I hope it's not Aisha. He said yes. So he went and he found them insulting her. So then Ali called Al-Qa'qa'. Al-Qa'qa' came with a group, and Al-Qa'qa' said, do you want me to strike their necks? And Ali says no, but punish them. And then Ali radiallahu anhu prepares Aisha with all that she needs for travel. And he chose 40 women, so she doesn't travel alone. 40 women of the noblest of the people of Basra to leave with their husbands just to accompany Aisha radiallahu anha. And on the day of her departure, which was Saturday, the 1st of Rajab, in the 36th year after the Hijrah, all of Basra goes out to bid her farewell. And Ali radiallahu anhu himself goes out and he walks near her animal for miles. He's walking, bidding her farewell. And so she calls on the people and she praises Allah, and she sends the salah and the salam upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she makes dua for the people of Basra. And then she says, O children, some of us have transgressed against each other because of delaying and hastening. Delaying to give the bay'ah and hastening, rushing to punish the murderers of Uthman. So do not transgress against each other with anything of that. And then she says, we are neither enemies to Ali nor is Ali an enemy to us. Wallahi, there is nothing between me and Ali except what small quarrels are between a woman and family members. And she says that with me, he is amongst the best of the people. She says this publicly to the people of Basra. And then Ali radiallahu anhu says, O people, by Allah, she spoke the truth. Nothing was between us except the small quarrels that's between family members. And then he said, and she is the wife of your Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this world and in the next. And then Ali radiallahu anhu returns to Basra. He puts as governor of Al-Basra Abdullah ibn Abbas. And he orders those who left Medina with him to get ready to travel back. And he left at the end of Rajab in the 36th year after the Hijrah. And he leaves to Kufa. And he makes Kufa his capital, radiallahu anhu. So now, just about everywhere is under the reign and under the Khilafah of Ali. We have Yemen, and Egypt, and Khurasan, and Faris, and Iraq, and Mecca, and Medina, everywhere except Sham. So now we move to the events that led to the Battle of Siffin. So when Ali radiallahu anhu goes to Al-Kufa, he wants to end this issue of Sham and the issue of Muawiyah. But Muawiyah radiallahu anhu didn't agree with that. He wanted to send someone to speak to Muawiyah. The first person he sends was a Sahabi by the name of Jarir ibn Abdullah al-Bujli, saying that the Amsar, the major cities, had pledged to him, and that the only ones left are Amr ibn al-As and his son Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As and Muawiyah. And they all refused to pledge to Ali radiallahu anhu unless he avenges the death of Uthman radiallahu anhu. So he's telling him, if you kill the murderers of Uthman, we will be the fastest to respond to you and will be the most obedient to you. Otherwise, you have nothing with us, nor to any of our companions except the sword. By the one whom there is no other God besides, we will pursue the killers of Uthman in the mountains and in the sand until Allah kills them, or our souls join that of Uthman. Wassalam. So now Ali radiallahu anhu commands people to prepare to attack Sham. And at the beginning of the Hijjah, in the 36th year after the Hijrah, he sent to the people of Yemen and to Al-Basra and Faris and Egypt and Khurasan, and he gathered 120,000 warriors. And the news of the army reaches Muawiyah. So they started to gather out an army, and they gathered an army of 90,000 warriors. So Muawiyah reaches an area called Siffin, and he camps there and he waits for the army of Ali radiallahu anhu. So then Ali reaches Siffin, and he finds that Muawiyah's army took control of all the water. So Ali radiallahu anhu sends to them saying, let's share the water between us. So some of them were of the opinion, let them taste the absence of water as they made Uthman taste it. Scholars amongst the people of Sham who were present, they said it is not permissible to prevent them from water. So they disagreed amongst themselves. So then Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, to agree to like something in the middle, he said, we'll prevent them from water temporarily, just to make them taste the thirst. So then they put a regiment near the water, and when the people came to drink, they prevented them. So now they tasted this thirst. So then Ali commanded to attack so they can get access to the water. So as soon as they attacked, the regiment withdrew. Now the army of Ali radiallahu anhu is in charge of the water. The people of Fitna said, let's prevent them now from drinking water. So then Ali radiallahu anhu tells them, you faulted them for preventing you from the water, and now you want to prevent them from the water? So he ordered to allow whoever wants to drink from the water to be able to drink. And now both armies are camped and both are around the water of Siffin. Then Ali sent messengers to Muawiyah. This is the last effort here. He sent Bashir ibn Amr al-Ansari and Sa'id ibn Qais al-Hamadani and Shabth ibn Rub'i. Bashir ibn Amr began, and he praised Allah and said, O Muawiyah, verily the dunya is going to leave you, and you will return to the akhirah. And Allah is going to judge you on your deeds and reward you based upon them. And I ask you by Allah to not divide the people of this ummah and not cause bloodshed between them. So then Muawiyah tells him, have you given this advice to your friend? So then Bashir ibn Amr says to him, he is not like you. Verily my friend is the most deserving of people of this affair. So then Muawiyah says, what does he say? And Amr says, he commands taqwa, and to respond to the son of your uncle to what he calls you to, of truth. It is better for you in your dunya and safer for you in your final end, in your akhirah. And then Muawiyah radiallahu anhu says, and leave the blood of Ibn Affan? He says, no, by Allah, we will never do that. So then Sa'id ibn Qais wanted to speak. But one of his messengers, the one we said his name is Shabth ibn Rub'i, he interrupts Sa'id so he can speak. So he praises Allah and he said, O Muawiyah, I have understood what you said to Bashir. By Allah, it is not hidden from us what you want. You find nothing with which to delude people and sway their desires with and get their obedience with, except to say your Imam was killed unjustly and we demand revenge for his blood. So he's saying that you want the Khilafah. So then he continues, we know that you purposely delayed sending assistance to him, meaning Uthman, and wanted him to die. So then he says, and perhaps someone would want something and Allah will come between him and what he wants. And then he continued saying other horrible things to Muawiyah. And now Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is shocked. He's a great Sahabi and he's a great leader. And the Prophet ﷺ used to put him in charge of platoons, and Abu Bakr put him in charge of Sham and Umar and Uthman. And now this man is attacking him like this. So Muawiyah radiallahu anhu was very moved, very hurt by this speech. And he praised Allah. And he said, the first thing that informed me of your safah is the one who doesn't know how to behave properly. And your lack of clemency is that you interrupted this noble man, meaning Sa'id. Then you accused me of things that you have no knowledge of, and you have lied in all that you have said. Get out! There is nothing between you and me except the sword. And in the month of Dhul Hijjah, in the 36th year after the Hijrah, the fighting of the Battle of Siffin begins. In the beginning, Ali radiallahu anhu sent a platoon, and Muawiyah also sent a platoon. And both of them fought, but no one won. There wasn't any kind of decisive victory, so they returned. So then they sent two other platoons, and they fought, and there wasn't a distinct or clear victory, so they returned. And they remained upon this for one whole month, for the entire month of the Hijjah. More than 90 battles took place, and there's no decisive victory. And what used to bother the army of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu was the presence of Ammar in the army of Ali. And all of them knew the hadith. And Muawiyah gives orders, no one approaches Ammar. And Ammar was the one holding the standard of the army of Ali. And whenever he advances, they would run away from him. And when the Hijjah ends, Ali sends to Muawiyah saying, would you agree, like a cessation of hostilities for a month, because this was the month of Muharram, in which there was no fighting. So they stopped fighting for the entire month of Muharram. And the two armies would meet at night. They were relatives, they were family, they were tribes, they all knew each other, they were Sahaba, companions. Go to the other camp would visit them. So then during this month, Ali sends messengers again. And he sends this time Adi ibn Hatim, one of the Sahaba, and Yazid ibn Qais al-Harbi, and Shibt ibn Rub'i again, the one who spoke rudely to Muawiyah the first time. And he also sent Ziyad ibn Hafs. So they enter upon Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, and Adi spoke, and he praised Allah. And he said, we have come to call you to an affair through which Allah will unite our ummah and prevent with it bloodshed and make amends between us. The son of your uncle, meaning Ali, is the best of the ummah and the best in Islam, and the majority of people pledge to him except you and your companions. So beware, O Muawiyah, so that you and your companions may meet a day like the day of Al-Jamal. So then Muawiyah radiallahu anhu tells him, it is as if you came to threaten and not to make peace. By Allah, I am the son of Harb. He's telling him, you can't scare me. And you, wallahi, were of those who incited against Uthman. And I hope that you're amongst those whom Allah kills. So then Shibt ibn Rub'i again spoke. From those who spoke against Uthman as well is Ammar ibn Yasir. So then he tells him, would you be pleased with killing Ammar ibn Yasir? And you know the position of Ammar. Muawiyah tells him, and what will prevent me from that? If I get a hold of the son of Sumayyah, I would kill him for the blood of Uthman's slave. So then Shibt says, Wallahi alladhi la ilaha illa hu. You will not get to him until next fly, and the earth tightens around you. And then Muawiyah tells him, in that case it will be even tighter around you. And then in the first of the month of Safar, the decisive battle of Siffin begins. Ali radiallahu anhu sent someone to say, O people of Ash-Sham, Amir al-Mu'mineen says to you that this is a chance for you to review what is the truth and to come to it, and that this is your final warning, and that Allah does not love those who are treacherous. And then he speaks radiallahu anhu to his own army, and he says, do not fight them until they attack you, for you are in a justified position. So if you defeat them, then do not kill anyone who is running away, nor finish off a wounded person, and do not uncover a awrah, nor disfigure the dead. And if you reach the homes of the people, do not uncover them, nor take anything of their wealth, nor harm their women, even if they insult your umara. So this is the advice of Ali radiallahu anhu. And then the fighting starts. For the first week, it wasn't fierce fighting. And Ali radiallahu anhu sent to Muawiyah saying, why should we have the people fight? Come out to me, and me to you, and whoever kills the other, the affair is his. Amr ibn al-As was there. He was there with Muawiyah. And he said, it's a good idea. Go to him and fight him. So then Muawiyah says, woe to you. Has there ever been a person who went out to him, except that he didn't get killed? Then during the battles, a freed slave of Ali, a Mawla, goes out to fight, and he was met by a Mawla of Muawiyah. So the Mawla of Muawiyah was able to kill that of Ali. So then Ali himself attacked. He struck the sword from the hand of the Mawla of Muawiyah, and then grabbed him from his clothes and raised him in the air with one hand and dropped him crashing down to the ground, breaking his neck and his ribs. And Muawiyah and Amr were watching this. So Muawiyah turned to Amr and said, and you want me to go out to him? And by the 8th of Safar, Ali made up his mind to bring an end to the situation. One large attack immediately, the next day, to end it. So he gives advice to his soldiers. Look at the advice he gives his soldiers. He tells them, make your night long in qiyam, and do much reading of the Quran, and ask Allah for victory and patience, and fight hard and be truthful. So the next day, Ali radiallahu anh commands a full attack all 120,000 of his warriors attacking the army of Muawiyah. And they fought for 3 days non-stop. And Ubaydullah ibn Umar, he's leading the advance guard of the army of Muawiyah. And leading the advance guard of the army of Ali is Hisham ibn Utbah. And this attack, Ubaydullah radiallahu anhu dies, the son of Umar ibn Khattab. He dies in the battle of Siffin. And the fierce fighting continues. And Ali radiallahu anhu at that time, he had 2 guards to guard him and to prevent him from entering the battlefield. That whenever they were not paying attention, he would attack and not return until his sword bends. And he would come back and say, Wallahi, if the sword didn't bend, I would not return. Now Ammar ibn Yasir radiallahu anhu, is at this point, he's 91 years old. Everywhere he goes, the Sahaba, the companions, are following him, they're behind him. And everyone else is avoiding him. As Ammar was in the battle, a man came to him with a drink of milk. So he laughed. He knew, this is as the Prophet ﷺ told him. And he knew that after drinking this milk, he's going to die. So he laughed, drank it, and said, today I meet the beloved ones, Muhammad and his companions. So then 2 men from the army of Muawiyah, and they didn't care, and they attacked Ammar radiallahu anhu. Abu al-Ghadiyah stabs him, and Ammar radiallahu anhu falls, and then Ibn al-Jawa removes his head. And Ammar radiallahu anhu is killed in this way in the battle of Siffin. The news spreads, and this incident is so great that the fighting stops. And in the army of Sham, it's a calamity. We have killed Ammar. That means we're the transgressing party. The narrator says the people started to go out saying, the ones who killed Ammar are the ones who brought him here. And this starts to spread. They start to say this all over the army of Sham. And then our narrator, Abdurrahman al-Sulmi, says, I don't know which is stranger, Muawiyah in saying something like this, or them in believing him in this. So the army of Muawiyah did not split up and remain together because of what he said. So then Ali radiallahu anhu orders another attack, and this attack also continues for days. At one point during the battle, the left flank of Muawiyah's army attacked the right flank of the army of Ali, and it was a strong and brutal attack. An eyewitness says, I saw 800 men from the army of Ali trying to push back this attack until 600 of them were killed. And they came off their horses and they started to fight on their knees. That's how fierce the fighting was. And then Ali felt that the right flank of his army had been defeated. So he sent Al-Ashtar al-Nukha'i at the head of a regiment, and he was able to defend the right flank of the army, and then he took him back to his place. So they fight for 3 nights non-stop. And then Ali attacks the heart of the army of Muawiyah. On this night, people prayed on their horses, and they fought until Fajr. And their swords broke, and their shields broke, and their arrows were finished, and they fought with bare hands and with rocks. One of the Sahaba says, we fought the Romans, and we fought the Persians. By Allah, we have never seen fighting more fierce than the fighting of companions to each other. And between Muawiyah and the army of Ali, there were 5 regiments. And Ali broke the 1st regiment, and then the 2nd, and then the 3rd, and then he defeated and crushed the 4th. And when Muawiyah radiallahu anhu saw this, he became scared, he became worried. And at this point, 70,000 men had been killed. 45,000 from the army of Muawiyah and 25,000 from the army of Ali. So Amr ibn al-As saw defeat, so he made a suggestion to Muawiyah. The best way to end the battle is to raise the book of Allah and say, let the book of Allah judge between us. They only lifted it when they saw that they're going to be defeated, and this was the opinion of Ali radiallahu anhu. So he said, let's fight and let's end this now. And others were saying, how can we not respond to the book of Allah? So he sends to Muawiyah, and he said, what do you want? And Muawiyah says, between us and you is the book of Allah. So he tells him, why raise the Mus'haf? He says, let us go to what Allah commands in His book. So Ali says, how? Muawiyah says, we send a man from your party, and we'll send someone from ours. And then get them to go by what is in the book of Allah. And then we follow what they agreed to. So they go to Ali with this proposal of Muawiyah, and Ali refused. And the people of Iraq, they accept. And Ali tells them it's a trick. So the people threw their swords down. Even though Ali radiallahu anhu, he was almost victorious and he was going to end the fitna, but it shows you the seriousness of disobeying your Amir. So then Muawiyah's army sent Amr ibn al-As. Every time Ali radiallahu anhu suggested someone, they refused him. And they said, we don't want anyone except Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, because he is a man of good opinion. Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu was known for being one of the most intelligent and quick-witted of the Arabs. So they write down the declaration. It says, this is a declaration between Ali ibn Abi Talib and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, declaring that Ali ibn Abi Talib has appointed an arbitrator on behalf of the people of Kufa and all those supporting him. And similarly, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan has appointed an arbitrator on behalf of all those who follow him. And we, holding the Book of Allah the Almighty and His order as judge, declare that both of us will follow nothing but the injunctions of Allah in His book. And we abide by the rules of the Quran from Al-Fatiha to its end, and declare to follow what is permitted and hold back what is forbidden. The two appointed arbitrators are Abu Musa, Abdullah ibn Qais al-Ash'ari, and Amr ibn al-As. They will give a decision according to the dictates of the Quran, otherwise in accordance with the Sunnah if the Quran is found silent over the issue. This is the agreement that they made. And they stipulated that if there's two people, radiallahu anhuma, make a decision, that people can't refuse their judgment, and that they can't harm them, or they can't harm their family, and that the soldiers from both armies are safe, and that the judgment will be upon all the ummah, and there will be no fighting until they make their decision. So the judgment was not until Ramadan, and they're in the month of Safar. So the armies go back. So this marked the end, for now, of the Battle of Siffin. So now the army of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is united, and they're satisfied, and they return home. And Ali radiallahu anhu returns in an army, but it's boiling. And when Ali returns to Al-Kufa, 12,000 leave his army. They are known to us today as Al-Khawarij. And amongst their leaders, Shibh ibn Rub'i, the messenger who was sent twice to Muawiyah, and he caused problems twice, and now this is the third time he's causing problems. So now the two arbitrators met in Dawmat al-Jandal, and it was Abu Musa al-Ash'ari and Amr ibn al-As. And each of them brought 400 men with them. And they brought as many Sahaba as possible, because the one who has a lot of Sahaba, it's a sign that he's with the truth. And they started to speak for a while, and all of the details of the negotiations are preserved in the books of history. They did not come to a solution. So then in the end, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari tells Amr ibn al-As, you know that Iraq will never accept Muawiyah, and the Sham will never accept Ali. So I suggest we remove both of them and bring Abdullah ibn Umar. So then Amr ibn al-As tells him, do you think he would accept? He says, if we insist, he will accept. So then Amr ibn al-As suggests, what if we bring Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas? And Abu Musa says no, he refuses. Then he says, what if we bring Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As? And he's not any lesser than Abdullah ibn Umar ibn Khattab. And Abu Musa says no. And every time Amr ibn al-As suggests someone to be the Khalifa, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari refuses. So both of them decided that they will remove Ali, and that they will remove Muawiyah from his position, and they will have the people choose the next Khalifa. So the news reaches Ali, and he refuses. And he gives a khutbah, and he shows his displeasure with the decision. And then he orders the army to prepare so they can continue fighting Muawiyah. So then the Khawarij came again, and they said, now you refuse it? And he tells them, I was against it. They said, but you accepted it in the end. And he tells them, so did you. And they said, yes, we accepted it in the end, and we erred, we were wrong when we did that, and we became kuffar when we accepted it. Because part of their belief is that when you do a major sin, they believe that that takes you out of the fold of Islam. So we became Muslims again. And now we want you to testify that you made kufr and enter into Islam again, and then we'll pledge to you. So then he says, La wallah, I will not testify against myself with kufr. So they left, and they called him a kafir, and they left with 16,000 men. The people in Sham said, as long as he was removed by the two arbitrators, then we'll pledge to Muawiyah. And they pledged to Muawiyah as the new Khalifa. So now for the first time, there are two khulafa for the Muslim Ummah. Meanwhile, while all of this is going on, Egypt starts going out of control. And when Muawiyah radiallahu anhu hears of the news of the people of Egypt, he sends them an army of 6,000 under the leadership of Amr ibn al-As. And then all of Egypt agrees to join them, and now they have a large army. So now Egypt is under Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. While all this was going on in Egypt, things were happening in Basra. The people in Basra were still upset about the battle of Al-Jamal, and they still want to revenge the murder of Uthman. So they start to communicate with Muawiyah, and he sends them Muawiyah ibn al-Hadrami, and he enters Basra secretly, and the people gather to him. And Ali was afraid that he will lose Basra now, so he sent Jariya ibn Qudama, and they fought Ibn al-Hadrami and defeated him, and they killed him. So Basra still under Ali radiallahu anhu, but it's still boiling. So now the Hajj season comes, and there are two khulafa. And you know that the Khalifa is the one who goes out and leads the Hajj, or he appoints someone. So Ali radiallahu anhu put Qithm ibn al-Abbas as the Amir of Hajj, and Muawiyah sends Yazid ibn Shajjara as the Amir of Hajj. So the companions in Mecca, they met under Sa'id al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, and they agreed to not obey any of the Umara. And at the end of Hajj, Ali radiallahu anhu started to gather the people again to fight. Yazid ibn Shajjara, who was sent by Muawiyah as the Amir of Hajj, he takes over Mecca. Ali radiallahu anhu starts to gather people to go fight him. So he starts to gather the people of Iraq, and they refuse to go out with him. He tries and they refuse adamantly. So Yazid ibn Shajjara now takes over Mecca. And now Muawiyah sees that Ali has no power, so he sent Busr ibn Arta'ah to Hijaz, to Medina and those areas. And then to Yemen, and he takes them for Muawiyah. So now Yemen and Egypt and Hijaz, Medina, Mecca, left the control of Ali. He only has Iraq under him, and it's boiling. Even they are not content. The territory under Ali right now is decreasing, and Muawiyah is increasing. So Ali sends an army to send Busr ibn Arta'ah out of Hijaz and Yemen. And they took him out of Yemen, and now they head towards Hijaz. So now Ali wins Yemen over again, and now they start to head towards the area of Medina and Mecca. The area of Persia also starts to leave Ali. All these problems that are happening are within 4 years. And the Fitn start in Kufa, and the Khawarij start to show up in Kufa, the city of Ali radiallahu anhu. And they would oppose him, even in the masjid. He's giving a khutbah, they interrupt him, causing problems. While all this internal fighting is going on, Heraclius sent an army to take over the lands of the Muslims. He sees them busy, fighting with each other. So he says, I'll send an army to conquer their lands. And when the army reaches the edges of Sham, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu sent him a letter saying, Wallahi, if you don't return, I will pledge to the son of my uncle and will come to you. And we fight each other, but you don't come and take over our lands. So the Romans felt he was serious, and they withdrew. So every time Ali radiallahu anhu calmed down a place, another place goes boiling. And in Kufa they're not respecting him, and if he gives an order they don't obey him. Most of his time just solving fitan and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He would pray the whole night, and they described that he would cry deeply. And the rest of the time he's trying to help the people and to give to the poor. And he did all that he could radiallahu anhu. And he gave a khutbah showing his displeasure with the situation, and saying how people were not loyal to him, and they did not obey his commands, and how they were treacherous. And he told them in the khutbah that how Muawiyah's group obeys him. And he says, Oh Allah, that I have grown tired of them, and they have grown tired of me, and that I have hated them, and they have hated me, and to replace me with better. On one of the days, two of the Khawarij sat down to discuss the affairs of the Muslims and what's going on in the Ummah. So one of them said, the problems are all because of Muawiyah. And another said, rather it's all because of Ali. And the third one said, and Amr ibn al-As is not far from this. So between the three of them, they said, let's rid the people of these three. And they agreed to murder all of them on the same time, after Fajr prayer, in the 17th of Ramadan, in the 40th year after the Hijrah. So Al-Burq ibn Abdullah al-Tamimi goes to Sham to kill Muawiyah, to assassinate Muawiyah. And he prayed Fajr with the people behind Muawiyah. When Muawiyah is leaving the masjid, Al-Burq lifted his sword, but Muawiyah saw him lift the sword, so he jumped out of his way. So Al-Burq struck Muawiyah's posterior and he cut it off. And the sword that he used had poison in it, and he had his would-be assassin killed. The doctor who came to him told him, I have two cures. One is cauterization with fire, and the other is a medicine that I will give you to drink, but if you drink it, you will become sterile. You will not have any more children after that. So Muawiyah radiallahu anhu said, I have no patience with fire, so he drank the medicine, and subhanAllah, after that he never had any more children. So we move now to the person who was assigned to assassinate Amr ibn al-As. So the man who was sent goes, and he also prays Fajr behind Amr ibn al-As, and after the Salah, he jumped to kill Amr, and he stabbed him, and he killed him. And he was surprised to find that Amr on that day was sick. So Amr radiallahu anhu was saved. So now we move to Abdurrahman ibn Muljim, who came to Al-Kufa. And when Ali radiallahu anhu entered the masjid, he started to call people, Ayyuhan nas, as-salah, as-salah. He's calling people to salah. And then Abdurrahman ibn Muljim attacks him. He struck him saying, the judgment is to Allah, not to you, O Ali, and not to your companions. And he struck him. He struck him in his head, and he hit him very hard. And it was a huge wound. But Ali radiallahu anhu did not die immediately. And the sword was poisoned as well. So when he was struck, he said, do not let the man escape. So they caught the man. And Ali says, a soul for a soul. If I die, kill him as he killed me. If I don't die and I make it through this, await my decision. And he gives advice to his sons and to his friends, and he says, O sons of Abdul Muttalib, do not shed blood saying Amir al-Mu'mineen has been killed. Nah, don't start avenging my blood. He learned the lesson from what happened to Uthman radiallahu anhu. Verily none should be killed except my killer. And then he says to Al-Hasan, he says, look, if I die, whoever struck me this blow, then it's a blow for a blow. Do not disfigure him after he's dead. And then Jundub ibn Abdullah enters and he says, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, if we lose you, and I hope we don't, should we pledge to Al-Hasan? Ali radiallahu anhu tells him, I don't order you, nor do I prevent you. You have better judgment in this issue. Then he calls Al-Hasan and Hussein, calls them near. He says to them, I advise you with the taqwa of Allah, and do not desire the dunya, even if it calls you to it. And do not cry over something that gets away from you, and speak the truth, and have mercy on the orphan, and assist the lost, and work for the next life, and be the opponent of the oppressor, and the supporter of the oppressed. Giving them beautiful, beautiful advice, and act on what is in the book of Allah, and do not fear those who will blame you for doing what is right. And then he turned to Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah. Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyyah is the other son of Ali radiallahu anhu. He turns to him and he says, have you learned what I advised your brothers with? And he says, yes. He says, I advise you with the same, and I advise you to have the respect of your brothers, and don't undertake any affair without them. And then he says to Hassan and Hussein, I advise you to take care of him, for he is your brother and the son of your father, and you know that your father used to love him. And then he tells Al-Hasan, O son, I advise you with the taqwa of Allah and establishing the salah in its time. And he kept on reminding him and advising him until he passed away. And then he was washed by Al-Hasan and Hussein and Abdullah ibn Ja'far al-Tayyar. And Al-Hasan led the funeral prayers and he made 7 takbir. He had remained alive Friday and Saturday and then died on Sunday night. And he was buried in in al-Kufa. So Ali radiallahu anhu dies at the age of 63 years old, and his reign was for a period of 4 years and 9 months, and this marks the passing away of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, second man to become a Muslim and the son-in-law of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.